I'm Alhaitham, the Academia scribe. If you wish to access an archived file, please submit an application according to the prescribed format. Oh? Your form isn't ready? Not to worry. You can come again on the next working day. My work hours are posted outside the office. The scribe's work is simple, which is exactly why I took the position. Book learning alone is not enough to cultivate intelligence. All those scholars in the academia are prime examples. There have been many poorly written applications lately. I guess I'll just have to reject them all. Going out on a rainy day is the worst. It's just a natural phenomenon, so there's nothing to be afraid of. Unless you're beneath a tree. It's getting cold, you say? I feel fine. This weather is perfect for doing nothing at all. Curses. There's sand in my shoes. It's a little early for me. Let me get a cup of coffee first. If there's nothing to do, then I'll just put on my soundproof earpieces and nap for a while. I'll be taking some time for myself now. Goodbye. I hope my roommate won't be hammering away on another one of his projects in the dead of night. Actually, I'd prefer if he wasn't home at all. I really don't want to wear my soundproof earpieces to bed. Rather than lacing my words with rhetoric, I prefer speaking factually. Oh? You're concerned about all the rumors you've heard about me? Don't bother, because I don't care whether you believe those rumors. Just don't throw extra trouble my way, and we'll be fine. Don't be offended if you try to greet me on the street and I don't respond. It's simply because I'm wearing my soundproof earpieces. That's all. It seems you're perfectly capable of taking care of yourself, so much so that you even look after that little companion of yours. I don't have any suggestions to offer you, and frankly, you probably don't need my help. To be completely honest, this dendrovision isn't of much help to my research. However, there's no denying the effectiveness of elemental powers when settling a physical dispute, so it still proves useful at times. Truth serves no master. Humankind is not a vehicle for knowledge, nor is knowledge the aim of humankind. There are many things in this world that may catch our eye, but don't always believe what you see. If what we see in the world were all there was to it, then there'd be no need to think, would there? One should neither dismiss nor overly revere the divine. Gods require followers, and they are also part of a biological hierarchy. That's why I don't take any pride in the fact that I helped rescue a god. I hope Lesser Lord Kusanali doesn't take offense. Kaveh tends to be overly sensitive about everyone and everything he crosses paths with, and he's constantly making a fuss about nothing. Maybe it's because he's too emotionally fragile. Someone set up a stand on the street saying that for each handmade keychain they sold, a child in poverty would be given a meal. Kaveh bought at least a dozen. This is Sumeru, where even healthcare is free. I needn't say more. Apparently, a lot of people think he has a bad temperament, but I don't think they're giving him a fair chance. When Kaveh built a house right over a withering zone and created a huge mess, it ended up being a real headache for the forest rangers. Even so, this forest ranger didn't hold it against Kaveh. He even invited Kaveh to his house for a meal. Maybe it's good people like him who allow people like Kaveh to survive. She's sharp and always keeps an eye out for herself. She knows how to take life by the reins and make her dreams a reality. I'm not condoning her actions, but just because we stand on different sides doesn't mean that I can't appreciate her attitude towards life. The hive mind case certainly added to the Matra's workload, but my conscience is clear. The root cause of what ultimately transpired actually has nothing to do with me at all. I'm sure Cyno appreciates that, as he hasn't once approached me about the incident. The strengths and weaknesses of a performing artist are quite clear. Nilu knows how to play to her strengths, which enables her to live a happy and simple life.
It's a waste for such a capable person to remain among the eremites. If only she'd consider my suggestion to join the academia. Our work would become a lot easier with someone like her around, but a predictable life isn't exactly her cup of tea. I can understand that. What a pity. Most people are wary of interacting with me. Perhaps they're afraid, or maybe they think I'm difficult to get along with. I hope to keep things this way. I've never been interested in social interactions, and as you can see, my life is more comfortable than most. I'd say this is proof enough that being social is not one of life's necessities. Every person should have something that they believe in and hold on to from beginning to end. Otherwise, it's easy to succumb to vicissitudes of life and find yourself being led astray. Once order is disrupted, the consequences spread like wildfire. I'd like to avoid such a scenario so I can keep my life intact and uninterrupted. I'll occasionally go to the tavern for a drink after work. That's not what you needed to know about? Huh. I was under the impression that sharing what you do in your free time is more personal than telling someone your thoughts or opinions. After all, you can get those from anybody on the message board. I like reading difficult and abstruse books and seeing others scratch their heads in confusion. I'm only joking. I don't delight in others' misery, and rarely do I encounter a book that's difficult for me. Based on my observations, many people inflict trouble upon themselves. Life already has enough hardships. No need to add to them. Taste supersedes presentation, else you risk overcomplicating the purpose of food. I think this is simple enough to understand. It's difficult to eat soup-like dishes while reading.
I can taste your mastery of the seasonings. A contemporary flavor. Not bad. Let's not eat here. Mind if I, take it home?
Happy birthday. I've always thought people are a little too enthusiastic about celebrating the day they were born. Wouldn't it be better to apply all that enthusiasm towards their daily lives and improve their standards of living? But you seem to have done well for yourself. I didn't know what kind of gift to get, so I'll just set up a special application channel, reserved for your submissions alone. Thank you. So it wasn't a one-time only thing. I think you're more excited than me about this progress. We mustn't let those lazy academia scholars know about the progress I'm making. If they catch wind of this, they'll stop at nothing to make my life even more of a hassle. I'll reject anything they send my way, of course, but the communication required to do so is a huge waste of my time. Here you are. Flicker. Scatter. Diffract. A process of elimination.
Here you go. Don't let any of it roll away now.
What a drag. The plan's changed. I need more time. Allow me. As expected. I didn't foresee this. I miscalculated. A grave oversight. How bold. Well now.
Yes? Let's get down to business. How long will this require exactly?
Hello. It's nice and quiet here. Thank you for inviting me. It's all right. I see that you opted for a diverse range of decorative styles. Doesn't entirely suit my preferences, but that's fine with me. It's hard to say. I value practicality. Aesthetics aren't generally something I put into consideration, but that's just my personal inclination. It may not work for you. After all, I'm not familiar with every single detail of your life. The top priority when furnishing a space is the owner's satisfaction. Everything else is secondary. Sure, if you're mentally prepared. But before you say anything, I'm not very interested in small talk. If you need something, just get to the point. As for whether I'll help, it'll depend on the situation. You could say it's the product of life experience. If you want to live at a more leisurely pace, you can try copying a page or two from my book. Is it? I don't think I'd gain experience this valuable from standard social interactions. But now, you've learned something by interacting with me. Congratulations. I already do what I want every day, so I can't think of a substantial answer to that question right away. I'm content with things as they are now. Oh, do I give you that kind of impression? Very well then. I don't like having my hands full. It interferes with my thinking process. But that reminds me. I need to make myself look like I'm always occupied, so I can avoid things I don't want to do and people I don't want to interact with. You, on the other hand, have a vast social circle, so you must run into difficult people quite often. I suggest that you ask them a few questions that they'll never find exact answers to. Once you divert their attention and energy into other matters, they should leave you alone rather quickly. Don't mention it. To some extent, I want everyone to lead the lives they want to live. That way, people will cause fewer headaches for each other. I figure most people would think similarly. Wouldn't it be great to live in a world without annoyances? Good morning. It looks like you already have everything planned out for today. Having things to do means you're being productive, while an empty schedule indicates a more leisurely day. Both are fine choices. I wish you all the best. Grilling meat looks easy, but it's actually difficult to do well. Everything we need is here. You should give it a shot. Who knows? Maybe you'll become one of Tevat's best pitmasters. Books are meant to be read, but in many households they often serve another purpose. Decoration. What some lack is not intellect, but patience.
This shouldn't take long. This'll work. Oh, I need a new approach. Just trying things out. This was actually quite fun. Next time you draw a good card, try to keep a straight face. Sure. The plan hasn't changed. Good. Keep it up. Concentrate and cogitate. I can see you're very experienced with this game. Well done. I can't imagine this is your first time losing. Not just yet. This man is a fraud. Yes, it's me again. I already warned you that if you weren't willing to sit and discuss things with me, I'd take measures to make things uncomfortable for you. Listen to me. That address he gave you is fake. Or at least, you won't find a merchant waiting for you there. This group has been boasting all around that they can provide information on a certain item as a means of luring people into their territory. Once you show up, they keep up the act until they have hard evidence that you want to purchase said item. Then they use that to squeeze you for all the more you're worth. I told you the other day. I wish to discuss my terms with your boss. Yes, and in no uncertain terms. But that was then. It does not preclude him from changing his mind in the future. If you're suggesting that we escalate this from a verbal exchange to a physical one, I accept. After all, even the archons used war to negotiate the ownership of Tevat. If, on the other hand, we can't agree on any means of negotiation at all, then I'm afraid my next course of action will sting a little more than the mere falling through of a few business deals. I will jeopardize the Eremite's reputation, which I know you value above all else. I am quite confident that if I began to take such action, your boss would willingly approach me himself. However, I fear that by then, some things will have happened that cannot be undone. Also, a word of advice. I suggest you tell your boss exactly what happened here today. Otherwise, he might blame you for not telling him in the future. Consider this. Have I ever failed to follow through on my word in the past? Not so fast. First, you return the 500,000 mora to them. Mr. Iman, there appears to be fewer staff in the restaurant recently. This wouldn't happen to be because they're all busy spreading the word to the students, would it? Someone who chooses to do business with a group like that really can't afford to get so flustered the instant someone confronts them about it. Consider the meal compensation for our silence. I'd say you're getting an excellent deal. What do you want? No need for thanks. My goal was to get to them, and you two gave me just the opportunity I needed. We're even. Oh, I advise you to keep your distance from them. Since they weren't able to make off with your mora in the end, they might harass you again in the future. All right. Goodbye. Who exactly are you two? And why are you inquiring about that? A student. Right. Look, you should know that those thugs conducting business with you had nothing to do with your lie. He doesn't even have a vision. Forget it. All right. I accept. Got a pen and paper? If you're searching for someone who sells that kind of merchandise, I'll give you one of their addresses, and you can try your luck. We'll reconvene at the appointed time by the pier. It doesn't matter if you show up or not. You were willing to part with 500,000 mora for something and you didn't even know what it was? Okay. Well, if you truly are as skilled as you claim, then you can beat the answer out of them when they become hostile. Look, if you've been making inquiries, then you have to know something by now. Tell me what you know so far, so I don't waste time repeating information. You know almost everything there is to know, but you're unable to compile this information because you've never seen the object before. This is what you've been looking for. This is a knowledge capsule. To put it simply, it's a vessel that can store a fixed quantity of canned knowledge. It's like a miniature Akasha. Anyone who links it to their personal Akasha terminal instantly becomes privy to its contents. Correct. Anyone. Unlike the Akasha, which heavily regulates who can access what information, knowledge capsules confer their contents without any requisites. It's essentially a convenient and harmless vestibule for knowledge. Unfortunately, it's illegal in Sumeru to privately possess or trade them. They were created as a means for scholars to transfer knowledge gained from Irminsul into the Akasha, and are intended to be destroyed immediately after use. But despite strict regulations, some of these knowledge capsules will always escape destruction. After all, there will always be those in this world who are dissatisfied with life as designed for them by the Akasha and wish to change their fate. Over the past century, a wide variety of canned knowledge has been leaked from the academia. Now, in Port Ormos, the valuable ones are a means to Mora for the Eremites. Meanwhile, those which the Eremites deem to be useless to them occasionally prove useful to the common citizens and hapless academia students. Well, I think that about sums it up. Oh, so that's your true objective. With our current arrangement, I don't believe I can offer an answer. You're still resolved. Fine. Let's talk somewhere with fewer people. Let's continue our conversation here. If you wish to learn more about the knowledge capsule that the academia lost, then you must help me with something. I need you to find someone named Dory, a traveling merchant. Unlike the peddlers who hawk inferior knowledge capsules, she often has quality goods in stock. Some say that as long as there is profit to be made, there is nothing she won't dare to sell. She's guarded against people from the academia because most of her wares don't comply with academia regulations. I think she blacklisted me. I met with her informant, but it soon became clear that they had no intention of letting me get any further. Become one of Dory's customers and earn her trust. This is my condition for further collaboration. Until you complete this task, you don't have question privileges. You two are outlanders who haven't been here for long, so Dory should view you as safe clients. I'll give you the informant's address and their contact password. Beyond the password, though, I have no way of knowing what other tricks she might have up her sleeve. You'll have to improvise. The true challenge begins after you meet her. She has a keen nose for Mora and a shrewd eye for wares, and she only likes customers who she deems to have good taste. I'll prepare some funds for you. Buy her highest quality wares and earn her approval. That's true. Have you two heard of elemental sight? Oh, that's a surprise. Guess I'll have to hold you in higher regard. Anyway, that ability should resolve your issue. Here are 2 knowledge capsules. Tell me, can you detect any difference in their quality? Try inspecting them with elemental sight. Rumor has it that higher quality knowledge capsules generally appear brighter when viewed through elemental sight. That's because knowledge originates from Irminsul, the root of dendro power itself. The more powerful the knowledge, the richer it is in dendro energy. However, some canned knowledge with a high concentration of elemental energy is of little use in contemporary times, so those capsules are of little value. Using elemental sight is merely a stopgap measure, but it should suffice for earning Dory's trust. Here's a sheet with the informant's location and contact password, and here is the Mora for purchasing canned knowledge. Don't be cheap. You'll need to spend to catch Dory's eye. If there's any Mora left over, just keep it. Oh, and be sure to exercise some caution. There have been Matra present in Port Ormos lately. Your efforts will be for naught if they catch you. They belong to the academia's regulatory body. They also handle cases of illegal canned knowledge transactions. Like I said, the academia has banned both their trade and possession. The Matra are razor sharp. You're in for nothing good if they lock their sights onto you. If you two want to back out, now's the time. Okay, then we have a deal. If you succeed in your dealings with Dory, come find me at the Wikela Funduk. We'll have an open discussion then. Ha, you two made it. And from the looks on your faces, you were successful. Well, Wikela Funduk is under the academia's control, so naturally the academia has people working here. I came to Port Ormos under the pretense of conducting official business. Relax. No one here is interested in anything we say, and the Matra won't come here. Okay now, tell me how your encounter with Dory went. Before that, I have to ask, why are you two so intent on tracking it down? You don't have to answer, of course. In that case, you're on the right track. A short while ago, The Academia lost a knowledge capsule in the desert. It's supposedly a divine knowledge capsule. Use it, and you'll gain the wisdom of the gods. I highly doubt it has any mystical properties, but it does indeed exist. And it's right here, in Port Ormos. That's what we need to find out next. I won't deny that. I am investigating because I'm curious as to what the divine knowledge capsule truly is. As you know, the Eremites in Port Ormos also have their eyes on it. It is an extremely precious item. The knowledge contained within may bring great power or wealth to whoever has it in their possession. Several brigades have been vying for ownership of it as of late, but there is still no victor. My personal finances and connections cannot compete with those of the Eremites. After attempting various methods, I finally managed to reach a tentative agreement with several brigades. I agreed to forego ownership of the divine knowledge capsule in exchange for the opportunity to study it. After all, there's no harm in understanding what it is. However, there are those who are less amenable to negotiation, such as those from Ain al-Ahmar.
They adamantly believe that the divine knowledge capsule contains King Deshret's power, and that he will return to this world when they obtain it. They refuse to let anyone from the Academia tarnish their deity's soul.
Yes, Ain al-Ahmar isn't exactly wealthy, but its members are determined to get that capsule by any means necessary. To that end, they've resorted to many methods more foul than fair in order to amass sufficient funds. So, I've been sabotaging their business to force them into negotiating with me. The divine knowledge capsule should be up for a secret auction within the next few days. Each brigade will place their own bid, and the prize will be covertly given to the winner. To ensure the capsule's security and to evade the Matra's notice, the winning brigade will not publicly disclose their victory. Unless I know whose hands the divine knowledge capsule ends up in, my agreements with them will fall through. Dory is the most reliable source of information, but that avenue was previously closed to me. With you on board now, the situation is different. Yes, you can say that. But this arrangement harms none of us. The day after tomorrow, go back to Dory and try to purchase information on the divine knowledge capsule's whereabouts. If she has no information, wait 2 days and approach her again. If I get the opportunity to study the divine knowledge capsule, I will relay my findings to you. Will that suffice as compensation? Okay, then we'll meet up in 2 days. You two want to try using a knowledge capsule? Sure, I can teach you. Doing so right under the Academia's nose is a bit problematic, though. What do you say we head to the outskirts of town? All right, this place works. Show me the capsule you purchased. Sword Fighting Techniques 8. A combat class knowledge capsule. This class is something of a rare find these days, since most have been taken by the Eremites to augment their battle capabilities. If you want to determine the efficacy of this capsule, I can evaluate your combat ability. However, effects will likely be minimal if you already possess a high amount of strength. We can conduct a controlled experiment where you fight 2 battles, one before using this knowledge capsule and one after. While you fight, we can use an Akasha terminal to monitor your various physical parameters. There may be variances in your physical strength between the 2 tests, as well as a disparity in your opponent's abilities. But don't worry, I'll run statistical analyses afterward to mitigate any confounding effects. When you are unable to understand a researcher's actions, most cases can be attributed to curiosity. This is but one theory. All right, let's begin the test. Just fight as you normally do. All right, I'll link your Akasha terminal to record data. The next step is to use this knowledge capsule. Hold it in your hand. I'll help you establish a connection with it so you can activate its power. All right, time for round 2. Fight with the same composure as before. Now, I'll start recording data again. Well, the knowledge capsule you purchased did improve his combat capability. During the second fight, his overall fighting performance increased by 0.073%. Of course, this could be because he is so powerful that the capsule's contents were unable to produce a substantial increase. At the very least, this test allowed me to gain more insight into you two. Our deal seems increasingly worth my investment. I'm heading back to Ikela Funduk. I await your response in 2 days' time. This is Mora for when you ask Dory for information. Pay her as much as she requests. Really? All right. Let's hear it. Look at that. Clear as day. It must have taken some guts just to infiltrate the scene of the Eremites transaction. But then to get close enough to take a picture like this. Bold move, Dory. Very bold move. All right. The person in this picture is indeed Misery, the leader of Ain al-Ahmar, and the glowing red capsule he's holding appears to be the Divine Knowledge Capsule. In which case, if we play our cards right, when we confront them next week, we should be able to force them to show their hand. Thank you for your time and efforts. Take a few days off while I make some preparations. Let's meet up again on the afternoon of the arranged date, 3 o'clock sharp. See you then. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let's head to the pier in front of Pharos Lighthouse. It was I who demanded that these negotiations take place. I was more worried that you might go back on your promise. But to your credit, it appears that you're sticking to your word. This is turning into quite an occasion. I also brought some backup. I assume you don't mind. It looks like he used the Divine Knowledge Capsule. I've heard of numerous incidents of researchers in Satyavada life going insane. The state that man is now in suggests that this is a similar situation. This Divine Knowledge Capsule does appear to be linked to the gods, but beyond that, it doesn't seem anything like the rumors suggest. Possessing it doesn't grant you divine wisdom or power. Did you hear what he said? World, forget me. What could that possibly mean? As things stand, there is no reason for me to remain in Port Ormos. I believe our collaboration has also reached its end. Truthfully, I don't. Lesser Lord Kusanali appears to exist outside of Sumeru's entire administration. Most of the time, you wouldn't know she exists at all. Moreover, since the Academia possesses the Akasha, a symbol of our deity's wisdom, scholars have no reason to desire to make contact with the deity herself anyway. I'm heading back to the Academia. How about you two? Now, do I deal with this thing first? Or should I produce the report that the higher-ups require? Enough gawking. Come on, follow me. Over here. You were too careless. You should have noticed those hopeless amateurs trailing you a long time ago. There's no need to thank me. I've never cared to keep track of personal favors. All I did was correct a mistake I happened to come across. It's a habit I developed at the Academia. Oh, so you've already landed yourselves on the Academia's hit list. I can't say that I didn't expect it. However, had I wished to turn you over to the Academia, don't you think you'd already be the Eremites' honored guests by now? I have no interest in running errands for that project. As a scholar, I've always belonged to the camp that promotes researcher autonomy. And these days, you're more fascinating than anything the sages can offer. Not quite. To tell you the truth, I'm still investigating the Divine Knowledge Capsule. Unfortunately, I've run into some difficulties. Everyone says the capsule originated in the desert and was eventually moved to Port Ormos. If I am to get to the bottom of this, I must understand how the capsule first came to be. Which brings me back to you and why you're so interesting. The leader of Ain al-Ahmar used the Divine Knowledge Capsule right in front of you, and upon seeing him, your expression became perplexed, and you were lost in thought for quite some time. To have that kind of reaction, I think you must have realized something. Are you interested at all in sharing what you've been hiding from me? So that's your answer. Well, I do work for the Academia after all. So considering that, it is indeed wise to keep your cards close to your chest. But that does prove you do have some undisclosed information about the Divine Knowledge Capsule. Am I right? No matter. Rather than simply learning the answers from you, I'd still prefer to investigate on my own. Speaking of, you two are also headed to the desert? Then I'd suggest starting with Aru Village. It's the largest settlement in the desert, so it'll probably have more resources and intel than anywhere else. Well, would you like to head there together? Before us lies Aru Village, the safe haven of the desert folk. Unless my memory fails me, we have barely spoken 2 words to each other before now at the Academia. Would you care to enlighten me as to when and how I invited the General Mahamacho's wrath? Judgment? So that's how you'd characterize your actions here, is it? Or would elimination perhaps be a more accurate description? Seemed to me more like your own personal touch. Yes. General Mahamatra Cyno, head of all the Matra at the Academia. He's a formidable hunter, and the ultimate nightmare for any who have committed academic crimes. Very perceptive of you. Nothing escapes a Matra's senses. No wonder you speak with such confidence, Cyno. But I must admit, I'm very curious. What does this capsule mean to you? And why, as General Mahamatra of the Academia, are you all alone in the desert? As far as I'm aware, the other Matra have been speculating about your disappearance. Have you been given a mission that's, let's say, morally dubious? If I was the real target of your mission, what was stopping you from simply using your authority and resources to judge me within the walls of the Academia? All right, stop yelling. So they really are up to no good. Yes, I was indeed tasked with investigating the traveler. After all, the promised reward was so great that hardly any scholar could have refused. The sage told me, once you've completed this assignment, I can give you a glimpse of divine knowledge. Unfortunately, those academics don't know me at all. Their words contained one key piece of information, namely that divine knowledge indeed exists. That gave me all I needed to know. From my perspective, the sages are far from trustworthy. Think about it. Isn't it a little strange they're so willing to share divine knowledge with anyone, even as a reward? So, I began my own investigation following the lead of the divine knowledge capsule. In the end, I realized my wisdom in committing to this rather than collaborating with the sages. Had I been less guarded, I probably would have ended up like that Ain al-Ahmar mercenary, incapable of remaining sane for long enough to hold a conversation. I'd already given up on the assignment by then. I only told the Academia I was waiting in Port Ormos for you to appear so they wouldn't suspect anything. So it came as quite a surprise when I encountered my erstwhile target while investigating the divine knowledge capsule. Even though I ran into the traveler by chance, I had no intention of providing assistance to the Academia. Also, you should remember, you were the ones who decided to follow me and strike up a conversation after I left that tavern. I'm willing to apologize if that's worth anything to you. I took the divine knowledge capsule behind your back because I judged its existence to be a significant risk. I felt that it would be best for no one to interact with it before it had been properly studied. After all, curiosity often proves to be the most dangerous thing in this land. Have I not made myself clear? You and I are both distrusted by the Academia. Do you really think they would tell me anything? As you wish. Everything in the natural world is inextricably connected to Irminsul. These regional symptoms can indeed be a reflection of Irminsul's present state. Well, as you can see, I am merely sitting here and reviewing what we have deduced thus far. You never think things through before asking questions. I'm giving you some time to make up for that. Well, you've heard nothing to suggest I left this whole time, so clearly I stayed in the village to investigate. Anyway, you plan to leave Aru village and keep searching for the truth of this matter, yes? No. I'm just surprised that you decided to team up with him. While you were investigating, I had my own work to do, which I've now finished. To be honest, we aren't really a team, so I have no obligation to inform you of my whereabouts. Not to mention that going separate ways allowed me to find some important information that you all had missed. Correct. I'm going to take you to someone. But before that, you need to understand where she's coming from. How do you think the residents of Aru village feel about what we're doing? In other words, do you truly believe every single word the villagers tell us? Hiding the truth does not necessarily equate to lying. Again, these people have their reasons. Remember what Candace said? Most people in Aru village don't necessarily care which deity is in charge of Sumeru. That's because whether King Deshret or the Dendro Archon has power is of little significance to them. By contrast, the perils of their daily lives are ever-present concerns. They won't simply share everything they know with you without good reason. That's why you believed there was no further information to be found in this village. Glad you're following along. Among those you have talked to, there's someone who was consciously keeping you out of the loop. In fact, she's been observing your every move since you arrived. The reason being, to someone who only wants to live their life in peace, any external factors introduce unpredictability into the equation. It's quite obvious that she's intimidated by Cyno's authority and strength.
She corrected herself mid-sentence because she's aware that there are King Deshret fanatics in the village.
If she sounds too friendly towards the village keepers, she could easily make herself the radicals' next target. Remember? She made a point of denying her involvement in anything that occurs at night. After speaking to the village chief, it became clear that the village keepers had protected Aru village at night. In other words, the young miss was very much awake during that time. By getting involved with an outsider, she risks drawing unwanted attention to herself. As for why she might be so wary about all this, maybe you should ask her. Miss Shawnee, as we discussed earlier, I've brought someone with me. Go ahead and talk to her. You'll get the answers you want. Go on. Earn her trust. You can tell them. I'm sure he'll keep your secret. I confirmed this with the guards on night duty. They also have someone with a good ear, and he's heard similar sounds at night. But, because we're in the middle of a desert, he would rather believe that they are the cries of beasts than ghosts. I think they used to use it for treating Elazar, but it's been abandoned for years, empty and forgotten. An ideal place to hide people. This is the one. Let's go in and take a look. Patience. Shawnee says she only hears the crying at night. We have time to burn. Until then, I'm taking a break. Okay, sure. So, you got that? There it is. It's coming from that direction. It's from below. Something is off about the interior here. As I thought. There's a hidden structure. Wait, Didn't expect to see him here. He's Razak, a senior of mine at the academia. No. And that's the problem. Razak was never involved in any of those things. He never trained in the forest, let alone reach Satyavada life. Leaving that question aside for the moment, him being here alone means that we might be too late. Looks like they've already taken everyone away. For whatever reason, they left Razak here. Perhaps they simply didn't have time to come back for him. There are drag marks on the ground. They're clearer by the doorway. Someone was forcefully drawing a cart that was loaded with something heavy. That is one possibility. It looks like they were in a hurry, as if they were afraid of being caught. In their haste, they failed to notice Razak hiding in a corner. The symptoms are identical. Looks like we found living proof. Allow me to jog your memory. Recall your time at Port Ormos. Don't you think his symptoms look familiar? Correct. The academia is behind all of this. It isn't difficult to deduce their rationale.
First, the academia spread a false rumor of King Deshret's resurrection,
emphasizing the role of the village keepers, the mad scholars who were exiled to Aru village. These rumors were all the persuasion that the radicals needed, and those based in Aru village leapt into action. Unbeknownst to them, of course, through rounding up the scholars, they were actually helping the academia. As well as being able to exploit the radicals for their own ends, this scheme has one further advantage to the academia.
All the risks and responsibilities are offloaded onto King Deshret's followers. Life for the desert dwellers has been brutal ever since King Deshret's death all those years ago. Beneath the surface, feelings of desperation are widespread. Many would give everything they have for the prospect of something better. Anyone looking to exploit that for their own ends simply needs to make a few empty promises. Even if complications arise, people will see that those involved are all followers of King Deshret and look for no further explanation than differences of belief. A deep-seated mistrust of the desert and everyone in it by the rest of Sumeru will make sure of that. The notion of an academia plot wouldn't even cross their minds. It may seem like a simple strategy, but it is able to work wonders under Sumeru's current circumstances. Throughout this process, one thing has changed. The scholars' identity. First, they were scholars. Then, they became lunatics.
After that, they were exiles. And finally, they become missing persons. An exile is still patently a living, breathing human being. But when someone becomes a missing person, that is brought into question. If you can't find someone, you have no way of knowing what exactly happened to them. That makes missing people an ideal resource. One possibility is that the information in their brains could be extracted into knowledge capsules. With the technology of the Sumeru academia, it's entirely possible. Perhaps the process caused them great suffering, which is why they cry out in the dead of night when no one is watching them. I'm the academia scribe, after all. I'm familiar with their projects. Anyway, judging by Razak's state, the contents of a divine knowledge capsule were extracted from his mind, but something went wrong in the process. Or perhaps his curiosity got the better of him, and he used such a capsule for himself. The look on your face tells me you've realized the answer. That's right. To some scholars, gaining knowledge about the gods is their entire life's pursuit. Extracting canned knowledge is just one of the extreme measures they turn to. However, I can't help but wonder, what do they seek to gain from divine knowledge? The academia is going out of their way to look for forbidden knowledge, but what is their ultimate goal? I've spent quite some time trying to analyze the contents of the divine knowledge capsule, but to no avail. It seems like my way of thinking is too different from theirs. All scholars seek to expand the horizons of knowledge, but I'm not particularly interested in gods, so I don't share their degree of zealotry. Extracting information from people as if they were lifeless objects? If this is the direction of academic progress, then the academia may as well shut its doors. Of course. The academia's actions run contrary to their rules. Whether it be academics or knowledge, everything has its boundaries. If those lines are crossed, the rules and order that govern everything in the world will be destroyed. This matter needs to be corrected, just like fixing a typo in a book. Not to be callous, but no. My criteria are a little more restrictive than that. There is no shortage of suffering in Sumeru, and the same can be said for the rest of Tevat as well. What do you plan to do about that? Save every last person? You can say that. Simply put, I don't blindly place my faith into strength or heroism. I do what I want. The divine knowledge capsule is something I want to investigate in full. That doesn't mean I'm willing to take action for the sake of a few strangers. You're probably right. Though I must say, I quite enjoy this feeling of being the odd one out. Uniqueness is also an asset, is it not? I'm just a more likable person than her in general. There's nothing more to it than that. He won't last long if we leave him here. Let's take him with us. We'll work out our next step after we return to Aru village. Unfortunately, somebody who's too young to take on the role of Isak's grandfather. Nevertheless, he's one of the people we're trying to find. Looks like none of you have realized wherein lies the issue. Cyno, you're the reason why they can predict our movements. It is simply a logical inference. I have my reasons. I know. You have a point. But I realized something as we were returning from the hospital. Cyno isn't like any of us. Do you still remember who you are, General Mahamatra? As a Matra, you are no doubt privy to certain kinds of information. Before you can take action against someone, you are required to have all the facts available, including the less than savory details. Simply put, the academia has traditionally allowed you access to a wealth of sensitive information. Knowing their modus operandi, wouldn't you expect them to take precautions against you? If you want to raise a vicious wolf, you need to make sure that you can avoid its bite. It's not that simple. The academia has eyes all over Sumeru, but they have a special protocol for dealing with you. Every so often comes a Nyagarbaha day. On this day, the academia enters new information into the Akasha through knowledge capsules. I remember seeing a thick notebook next to the control panel once. Its contents were all about the General Mahamatra, his activities throughout the day, preferred methods of enacting judgment, everything. The Akasha is capable of computation. The Akasha's algorithms are entirely capable of predicting your movements using the data entered. When you would depart, the route you would follow, your destination. It knew all of this. The academia has been watching you longer than you think. However, the fact that you resigned is proof that their suspicions were well-founded. There is always an opportunity for safety after danger passes. There's also something I want to investigate. It's buried in the sand. Looks like we'll need to roll up our sleeves and do some work. These are likely fragments of an academia-developed device, something akin to a headset. Looks like there were more than one village keeper. They must have been escorted this way because there are device fragments scattered around here. Let's split up and search the area. Chances are that we'll find other things nearby.
This is definitely a device used to extract divine knowledge. Razak didn't display any signs of starvation or dehydration, which means that they left fairly recently. One more thing. Given that the device had been entirely covered by sand, I believe the attack must have happened prior to the sandstorm. Diaz talking with the Eremites? Very interesting. Let's listen in. Do you really believe that by kidnapping the scholars, you'll be able to negotiate with the academia? These people have no value as bargaining chips, but I could be persuaded to take their place as your next hostage. These scholars were exiled from the academia. I, on the other hand, am their current scribe, and will be a much greater asset to you. Precisely. Any wise person would gladly accept my offer. Well, that would be bad luck for me. However, I'd get the chance to observe the scholars, perhaps even find out the truth. I'm not trying to persuade you. I'm using this as a means of joining forces against the academia. Not all desert dwellers believe in King Deshret, and the same applies to the academia. Why must all knowledge seekers approve of the academia's way of doing things? I never make empty promises. I do. You don't have to go this far. Whatever it takes? You just might be scholar material. The Eremites once said that I was a lunatic. Perhaps a little madness is essential to be successful in research. They got here before us. Absolutely. Although, you brought fewer people than I imagined. What a nuisance. Hey, look around you. It seems that when the sand dune collapsed, it exposed these underground structures. The symbols on the gate belong to King Deshret's civilization. This structure must be ancient. Over time, the sandstorms completely buried it and left it in the state we see now. It could have been an underground palace in the distant past. As it happens, I want to take a look inside too. Don't you think it's curious? 1 minute, Lesser Lord Kusanali's power protects us from harm, and the next, remnants of King Deshret's civilization appear. 2 major deities are vying to showcase their power to us. It would be a shame not to witness them both. Indeed. In my view, gods are just a higher form of living being, or creature, you could say. New discoveries are always worth investigating. Whether they have anything to do with gods is neither here nor there. Sir Rahman. Do you see another Rahman here? Interpret it however you want. But there's something I'd like to draw your attention to. While this structure is clearly left over from King Deshret's civilization, the energy that flows in here is that of the Dendro Archon. There's nothing to be angry about. Think of this as an academic journey. They left something behind. Yes, it's an elegy written in an ancient script. Here lies our faithful priest Kasala. His wisdom is a miracle among the people, deserving of high praise and admiration. Of course, every student needs to master at least 20 languages before they graduate. Is this it? There seems to be a hidden message among these skeletal remains. Excellent. There's a device from King Deshret's civilization in this gravesite. I'll transmit the information over and project it for everyone to see. Yes. However, under the circumstances, I'd prefer you to see this for yourself. You'll understand after watching it. The priest's memories. You might be distrustful of the Akasha, but there's no reason for you to doubt King Deshret's technology. You've just witnessed his priest's last words. So these are the people who kidnapped the village keepers. There's no need to yell. No one can help you now. So, your superiors have kept you quite busy recently. Why? What are they trying to accomplish? Don't play dumb. You know what I'm really asking. They extract divine canned knowledge. Then what?
This is what the arrogant ignorance at the extreme end of academia looks like. But how do you determine whether the knowledge extracted is of divine origin? You must have noticed by now. The academia doesn't care about who their god is. It's the ability to exercise control over knowledge and wisdom that matters. It is as if they are cursed with a desire for omniscience and omnipotence that burns in their blood. Some organisms demonstrate phototaxis, and thus orient their entire lives in respect to sources of light. For the sages, their only source of hope is the existence of a deity who embodies the acme of wisdom. This is but a form of phototaxis. For many scholars, the absence of a god of wisdom means stumbling in the darkness for the duration of their lives. So you were still withholding some information? It seems like there will be more issues to face in the days ahead than I had anticipated. Indeed. These events are a flagrant transgression of the rules in every sense. We cannot allow it to continue. Well, let's brainstorm a little more about what other resources we can draw on.
We already discussed things a bit. Very well. The point of discussion is to arrive at a solution. Let's cut the small talk and move to the next point. Okay. Have you finished saying your goodbyes? Yes, she did. But I think my point also bears repeating. Our plan is not child's play. We won't be able to achieve anything if we're simply careful. We must go beyond that and fully commit ourselves to it. I hope this is clear to you. Didn't we already do that during the meeting? In that case, Candace can cuddle you to your heart's content while I continue to remind you of the seriousness of our situation. We all have our jobs to do after all. It's like how some people can be put in charge of logistics while others will fight on the front lines. Of course. Compared to the mercenaries, I'm merely a feeble scholar. But the advantage of not being a mercenary is that I get to stay in a safer place and offer my strategic insight. Just think about that mercenary who lost his mind. Mercenary groups are facing constant danger every single day. I'm not like the rest of them. Even among members of the same species, some will exhibit far more potential than others. All intellectuals are lunatics in the eyes of fools. I'll take that as a compliment. That reminds me. Do you remember the record we saw in the King Deshret ruins? It mentioned forbidden knowledge. You have a good memory. Forbidden knowledge has the power to drive people insane, but this fact has never been shared with the public. Even I, who has worked in the academia for some time, was never once informed of this. I think those mad scholars and mercenaries we encountered may have all fallen victim to the corrupting qualities of forbidden knowledge. But the academia has always held a different view. They have always believed that symptoms of madness are a side effect of human contact with divine knowledge as mere mortals. Come to think of it, perhaps the academia has also never understood the true nature of forbidden knowledge and thus always approached the issue from the wrong direction. The Withering, Elazar, and the sandstorms. Don't you think what is happening right now across Sumeru is rather similar to the forbidden knowledge pollution that occurred in the desert thousands of years ago? Ah, you've connected the dots. The cause of Irminsul's illness may precisely be the pollution from forbidden knowledge. Wait, why do you think Lesser Lord Kusanali would have a solution to this situation? In that case, it's imperative that we rescue Lesser Lord Kusanali. Only by working with her to save Irminsul can we completely resolve the problems Sumeru currently faces. To make sure we're still on track, I would like to check on the state of some of our preparatory work to an Eremite base.
They're here.
I gave them some technical work to do. How's the work going? Look here. What's that look on your face? Are you scared? That's an interesting response. Anyway, we're not going to use this just yet. As I mentioned during the meeting, this knowledge capsule contains a decree I drew up in the past. The academia should also have their own copy. And according to the plan we just came up with, Traveler, I want you to record something into this capsule. Do you believe we can save Lesser Lord Kusanali? Good. Conviction is the most important part of all of this. Now, please get ready and put on this device. Yes, I understand. But trust me, Paimon, this is something we have to do. It's best if you can do as I say. Because, to achieve this impossible task, it sounds like you'll need to fool your own heart first. Although it may feel like a trick, self-encouragement may be the most important tool we have. Imagine this. We have orchestrated our plan and successfully rescued Lesser Lord Kusanali. As a result, we have changed Sumeru's entire political landscape. Everything went without a hitch, and everyone recognizes and praises our achievements. Now, open your eyes. Here, read it out loud. It's done. It's just a recording. There should be no negative effects. And that's perfectly fine. In any case, these capsules aren't meant to be used by you. Have you forgotten? Our plan needs to account for those who have long relied on the Akasha. You may find it hard to believe, but for those people, everything the Akasha transmits to them is nothing short of absolute truth. Imagine if you've been using a device like the Akasha since the day you were born, and this device has always supported you during times of need. After all that time, what do you think you'd become? A slave to orders, and that's why rules are so important. In addition, those who understand the rules can delineate boundaries and identify gray areas. You could say that those kinds of ambiguous zones can be very interesting. One might even say they're advantageous in the right hands. Anyway, that's enough chit-chat. I'm going to take those two to work on some small projects. You can head to Caravan Rebot and start preparing for the next step. We're going to tinker with the Akasha terminal and make a few modifications. The Caravan Rebot operation is of great importance, but don't worry. The guards there shouldn't know that Cyno has stepped down.
First, the other Matra still don't know why Cyno has left, which proves that the Academia has been covering up the matter.
Second, this is a crucial moment for the Academia's God creation plan. If something were to happen to the General Mahamatra, it's bound to attract a lot of unwanted attention. No matter how you look at it, they don't seem interested in sharing the news of Cyno's departure. Which brings us to our next issue. I'm sure some of you have been wondering if the prediction function of the Akasha will affect our operation. I've given that a lot of thought. For now, I don't think you'll need to worry. If you remember, when you first came to Aru village, all your actions and routes were predicted by the Akasha. It even gave that information to those who kidnapped the village keepers. But things like that never happened again after we met up with the traveler. Look at it from a different angle. Why do you think the Akasha will predict your actions? That's true, but the key to this question is, how well can the Akasha make predictions about a person? Haven't you ever thought about it? Just how can it do this in the first place?
The Academia firmly believes that all human actions can be explained through logic.
By sorting and analyzing entered data, the Akasha can derive behavioral logic and predict the actions of those who fit an existing logic model. However, at the risk of sounding like an advocate for fallacies, can everyone truly be considered logical at all times? Emotions are part of our behavioral logic. But can you guarantee that every experience of the same joy or pain would be equally intense? How can our feelings and opinions be predictable down to the letter in every single instance? Cyno, in the past, you've always worked alone. In the absence of another person who could sway you or your thoughts, the Akasha could produce predictions that were similar to your real-life behavioral principles. Decisive and principled, you were used to solving problems alone. That's why the Akasha could figure you out. But now, you've joined a team. And I believe the Akasha hasn't yet figured out the full composition of it. Our thoughts and logic have intermingled and weaved themselves together to become a complicated, chaotic mess. Any one of us could potentially disagree with another. The Akasha lacks data on these interactions, and it's impossible for it to predict your actions in the future based on your decisions in the past. After all, there's probably a limit to just how much we can be modeled or controlled by data. So, in my opinion, you're probably safe for now. All right, everyone is here. Let's report back one by one. I'll start first. We've made the necessary modifications to the Akasha terminal. In addition, the props required are also ready. Good. It appears to have been very effective. I'm glad to hear it. Well, is that everything? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. Well, what else is there to discuss? Personally, I'd rather we all go home and get some rest. Oh, and if you wanted someone to say something to that effect, then I must reiterate that I'm here to strategize and not to lead. So you should find someone more suitable to do that. Then I should remind you that I'm the scribe. A scribe is responsible for recording meetings, not speaking. Welcome, Nilu. Would you like to join us? Yes. Something very important. Nilu, are there any breaks in your performance schedule in the upcoming days? All the preparations are done. Now, can we finally conclude this meeting? Thankfully, I've had my place to myself recently. It's been nice and quiet. Oh, nothing. Hello, you two. Sleep well? Naturally, I slept just fine. After all, a good rest should be considered part of the plan, since energy is an important resource. It's crucial to dissipate any tension before we execute our plan. Anyway, do you need me to go over the game plan again? Our target is Grand Sage Azar's office. Everyone in the academia knows that's where the Grand Sage's console is. Only they can operate it. Many restricted commands and operations are executed via that console. I'm sure that console has a way to free Lesser Lord Kusanali. That isn't something they could have accomplished with their scholarly talents alone. In the sanctuary of Surasthana, there's a device of Greater Lord Rukadevata's that she once used to isolate herself while meditating. 500 years ago, the Grand Sage at the time modified the device so that it can no longer be controlled from the inside. They were effectively trapping one god with the power of another. Don't forget, today is Nyagarbha Day, arguably the most important day to the academia. The sages and core academia personnel are busy loading the latest batch of research developments and legal decrees into knowledge capsules so that they can be entered into the Akasha. All the Darshan's researchers have their noses to the grindstone, and the academia's grounds are flowing with all sorts of people. It's the perfect time for an infiltration. When the Grand Sage leaves his office to supervise the entering process, that's our cue to access the console and free the Dendro Archon. Well, yes, that's just the visible side of our plan, after all. If precedence holds, the academia should have already started preparing for Nyagarbha Day. Let's go. Yes. Were you expecting a stealthier approach? That's me. Is something the matter? I'm in a hurry. Outside guests. How did you arrive at such a conclusion? Your groundless inference shames the Haravatat Darshan. That wasn't my intention. As your Haravatat senior, I just assumed that you possessed a greater aptitude for critical thinking. Look, based on what you already know, the purpose of my return and the reason they're here should be obvious. Hey, shh. Yes, you've proven yourself as the top student in Haravatat. I surmise you've arrived at the correct conclusion. It's nothing. We'll be on our way then. I'm afraid I don't know either. He convinced himself of whatever truth he came up with. That is the so-called pride of a scholar. If someone questions their academic facility, they will instantly feign understanding to keep up appearances. Nowadays, the academia is rampant with this type of scholar. Their obvious farces of intellect only serve to highlight themselves as fools. We shouldn't waste any more time. It would be problematic if we missed our window of opportunity. Let's go. Indeed. Known as the House of Dana, it is quite possibly the most extensive special collections library in Tevat. The academia marches to a fast beat, especially since it's Nyagarbha Day. They're all occupied with their own matters. Just act natural. Now, hurry along. It's a lift that academia personnel use to access higher floors.
No, not right now. We can't guarantee that we won't run into the Grand Sage. Let's step back and observe for now.
Who knows? However, if we can confirm Azar's current location, our operation will be much safer if we…
Grand Sage, I didn't expect you to care so much about me. I'm truly flattered.
As per your judgment, Grand Sage, they are indeed dangerous individuals. Not only are they acting against the academia, but their ideologies have the potential to lead scholars astray. Looks like there really was merit in my assignment. Anyway, I've brought them to the academia as ordered, but it took some time and trouble. Oh, that reminds me. Here's the investigation report you had requested. It's a summary of my time spent with the Traveler, an array of information about him ready for your perusal. Lord Azar, I know what you're trying to say, but I've been following your plan this entire time. Why are you doubting me at this juncture? Regardless, that's only a guess. The facts are that I've brought the Traveler right before you, and I gave you my report. You'll see me as a traitor regardless of what I say. No, even if you impugn me, it would have little effect on you all. You said that I betrayed the academia, but you, Azar, you've betrayed all of Sumeru, betrayed its archon. Apart from that, we still have yet another goal in the first stage of our operation, which is to send the Traveler to the confinement room. He's always been the person the sages are most afraid of, as well as the greatest obstacle to their successful implementation of their plan. They are very aware of the risk he poses to them. Once the Traveler is imprisoned, the sages will likely think that everything is under control, and with their guard down, the next phase of our plan will have a much higher chance of success. That isn't the only reason, of course. He has a more important task once he's in confinement. According to the Academia scholars in Rahman's custody, Lesser Lord Kusanali has sealed off her consciousness in the Akasha ever since she was captured by the doctor. That way, they can't pry any more information from her. Even if we break into the sanctuary of Suristhana, it will take time to awaken Lesser Lord Kusanali's consciousness. We need to do that in advance.
The confinement room is inside the Academia, close to the sanctuary of Suristhana. It's a completely enclosed space, and you won't be receiving any visitors. I'll work with Rahman's scholars to make some modifications to your Akasha terminal. Once you're in, get as close as you can to Lesser Lord Kusanali and try to connect to her consciousness. However, as for whether she'll actually wake up, that will depend on our luck. Now that Lesser Lord Kusanali's consciousness has been forcefully sealed, the core figures of the Academia and their guards have started to wear their Akasha terminals again. With the doctor's technological support, they think they have nothing to fear. But this is also our chance. I was originally asked to draft the knowledge capsule for the Artistic Performances Prohibition Act when I was still at the Academia. It should be on the Grand Sage's desk right now, and will be entered into the Akasha during the next Nyagarbha day. I'll make an identical knowledge capsule, but this time, I'll smuggle some misleading information into it. We only need to find an opportunity to switch the capsules. Once it's been entered into the Akasha on Nyagarbha day, if someone were to be seen performing in public, the sages would definitely use that opportunity to announce the ban, and so the misleading information will be disseminated amongst the guards. People who are used to relying on the Akasha become less inquisitive, and their ability to distinguish truth from misinformation is significantly reduced. They will view everything the Akasha releases to them as the unequivocal truth. Do you have someone in mind? All right. After the guards and the Academia are gone, this is not just some worthless book. Do you have any idea how difficult it is to find a physical book like this in Sumeru? Oh, you sound surprised. I thought you would already know the inside story. Well, I almost became a sage. Oh, don't sound too surprised now. You're the renowned kaveh, light of the Ksharawar. Besides, as a master builder and craftsman, chances are you'll be appointed as a sage too. Huh, what makes you say that? Why would you question my heartfelt sincerity? Yeah, well, I share a similar sentiment, and anyone who knows you as well as I do would surely do the same. It seems that you really can't stand my personality. Well, then you might as well move out of my house. Forget what's going on with the Academia. Haven't you been busy with your construction project? Tell me, when are you going to build yourself a mansion? So, what great building did our master architect work on this time? No, I think we deserve to know. Where were you when Sumeru needed you most? Well, while you were out fiddling around in the desert, many people came together to save Sumeru from a crisis. Look, all you really need to know is that Azar and all his accomplices have all been overthrown. It's no skin off my nose if you don't believe me. It's not like my Darshan was the one trying to apply for funding from the Grand Sage. Yours, though, on the other hand. Oh, it's you two. What's the matter? Letter? If she addressed the letter to alhaitham of the Academia, then the letter should have gone to my office. I've been busy these days, so I haven't had time to check for any new mail at my office. I only now have some free time to attend to personal matters. Of course not. I'm only busy these days because several sages have been dismissed recently and the whole Academia was practically turned upside down. That is already the best possible ending for the likes of them. 4 of the 6 great sages were possessed by their desire for power and attempted to create a new god. In order to pull it off, they even imprisoned the other 2 rational sages. To imagine such things could take place in the Academia. I don't know where to begin. Yes, at least that's how they're supposed to sound. It's said that when the academia was first founded, the Dendro Archon herself established the 6 great schools, each representing one of the 6 different types of wisdom. Numerous Darshans have sprung up and faded. Only the 6 Darshans attaching themselves to the 6 great schools have stood the test of time and obtained permanent seats in the academia. Now, the 6 Darshans are nearly synonymous with the 6 great schools, and the leaders selected for the schools are the 6 great sages. Among the 6 great sages, there is one central leader, the Grand Sage. Yes, normally, new sages are selected based on a strict set of criteria. Yes, about that. You didn't let me finish my sentence. The person in charge of personnel affairs nominated me to be the Grand Sage in place of Azar and help Lesser Lord Kusanali manage the academia. But I refused. I'm not even interested in being one of the 6 great sages. Like I said before, I don't like being a leader. That's not my job either. I'm only responsible for handling important affairs within the academia before the new sages take office. And the first thing I'll do is reject Kasharawar's application for funding. Do we look like friends? His name is Kaveh, my roommate. You could say he's the representative for Ksharawar scholars, which is exactly why he always has so many problems. Such is the work of the Academia Scribe. Alright, I'll see you there. I propose that the last one who arrived be put in charge of today's speeches. Oh, really? Well, even better. We owe it to our abilities. And luck. It's luck that brought us together, and it was luck that let us form a team. Then, it took even more luck for us to formulate a plan and implement it successfully. Moreover, judging from the results, everything worked out well. No, everything you said is correct. You could simply tell Lesser Lord Kusanali that you wish to have Azar and his accomplices severely punished. Are you trying to say that I'm fit to be a sage? Could you try to put it another way? This is a good thing, yet you're making it sound like I overthrew Azar for my own personal gain. I did have my own motive, but it had nothing to do with being a sage. If the rules of our nation were suddenly cast by the wayside, then it wouldn't be long until chaos ensued. I had no intention of letting their dreams disrupt my life. Precisely. It's reason enough. You flatter me. I seldom participate in such lively gatherings, but the atmosphere here is quite good. No. This gathering today has a unique meaning. The Grand Bazaar is lively because the people here feel happiness from the bottom of their hearts, unlike the farces at the academia. That happiness is an emotion that'll be forever alien to those bookworms who have driven themselves insane by studying. I seem to have taken both keys when I left the house. Oh well. I didn't expect to have a conversation with the consciousness of Lesser Lord Kusanali in the Grand Bazaar. Interesting. Is this also a part of the feast? This is how the relationship between the academia and Dendro Archon should be. We just did what was necessary and set things back on the right path.
You're overthinking things. My interest was piqued is all. That's right. Arav, prepare to head out. You two, do as you will. Looks like you haven't read any memos lately. The new Academia decree clearly states that even a sage doesn't have the authority to interfere with the Matra's actions during an ongoing investigation. If your superior were here, he wouldn't be asking me what to do. Instead, he'd be telling me to stay out of the way. Sure, though I'd rather he just protect himself. Answering a simplistic question only enables the questioner. Besides, I need him to understand my position clearly. Arav has just as many doubts about my coming along as you do. But unlike you two, he's making this matter more complicated than it is, with his considerations like the acting Grand Sage is trying to seize the Matra's powers. That question was obviously bait. The Matra were once under the influence of the sages, and so were often subject to these bureaucratic traps. The test was strictly unnecessary, though. I hope that our exchange will assure him that I won't interfere with their work this time. This is why I was against becoming the acting Grand Sage from the very first. Titles and rank inevitably make a lot of things more troublesome than usual. No, I have no recollection of ever meeting you. Then why did you ask? Really? A misperception, perhaps. Or... Suraj? I would like to ask him a few questions. Do you know Suraj? What were the details of this transaction? No, he's all yours. But I'd like to borrow Ilyas for a while. I've read some papers regarding amnesia, and I'd like to try restoring his memories. Follow me. I thought you would have guessed the reason by now. Yes, we were classmates. You couldn't be further from the truth, but I wasn't expecting much from you to begin with. For the time being, all you need to know is that we were once classmates. I became the scribe afterwards while he continued his academic endeavors. He submitted a thesis 1 year ago, and the Grand Sage at the time asked for my opinion. I did not approve of it because it committed one of the 6 cardinal sins by touching upon human evolution. From violating matters regarding human evolution to attempting the forbidden and fearing none, the 6 cardinal sins are the origin of all evil in this world. They are also what the sages use as a reference when formulating or amending the rules of the academia. My opinion was that Siraj's research was both overly naive and in violation of various core principles. The Grand Sage took some of my suggestions on board and ultimately decided to reject the application. He's most likely trying to circumvent the rules and conduct his experiment in secret. It is possible for a person to subconsciously forget some of their memories as a defense mechanism against extreme stress. However, these memories aren't truly lost, but merely sealed away. They can be restored with the appropriate stimulus. Now, try to recall things you care about. They don't need to be related to this case. Do tell, not unexpected. However, you're the only one who has seen Siraj and knows the exact location of his cave at present. As such, we'll do everything we can to help you regain your memories. I see. In that case, let's go and find whoever's in charge there. I did. Recent research expenses have decreased quite a bit compared to past figures. I believe you know this individual. His name is Ilyas. He worked part-time here, and he's here for his paycheck. I have no objections. No motivation to conduct research? Oh, don't mind me. Please, continue. When you say how things will pan out, you actually mean what the new sages would have interest in, right? I see. It's what Siraj was researching and the topic of the thesis he had submitted. Collective consciousness and the path of evolution. Siraj believed that by achieving 3 objectives, he could create a collective consciousness in human society and drive humans toward their ultimate evolution. First, he would rank test subjects in descending order of ability, with number 1 serving as the overmind.
This overmind would then divide tasks into numerous modules and delegate them to the collective's members based on their assigned number and the task's importance. Lastly, this system must support the rapid exchange of information within the collective, or even better, allow its members to share their memories and emotions.
Think of it as linking many minds together and tailoring a given mind's assigned work based on its compatibility. Eventually, everyone's minds will be consolidated into a new form of existence that is both an individual and an organization. Siraj believes this collective consciousness is superior to individual humans. Take your time. You'll eventually remember it all. However, something doesn't seem right. Some details don't add up.
You were only designated as number 36? What a shame. From what I can see, your talents merit a smaller number.
I'm not sure what Siraj's numbering system is based on. Anyway, we're done here. Let's go.
Huh?
Do you know something? That's enough. There seems to be a dispute between the two of you, but I have no interest in that. I heard that Siraj once invited you to join his project. Is that true? Tell me. Did Siraj tell you how he assigned numbers? I see. He believes that this data can be used to evaluate a person's computing power.
Putting aside the validity of the data, it is meaningless to judge individuals based solely on their jnana energy.
At most, jnana energy can only be seen as representing a portion of a person's abilities. Humans are complicated beings, so it is impossible to evaluate them using a single criterion. What else do you know about Siraj? Do you want to remember? Even though you're a witness against Siraj in this case, you've also lost your memory. No one can force you to remember if you don't want to. Even if you manage to remember, all you would need to do is feign ignorance and tell us that you tried the best you could, but to no avail. I can look up your file. Something that caused trouble for a lot of people in the past must be on file somewhere. Would you like me to look into it? All right, then let's return to the House of Dana. We've spent enough time here, and you should go and get your paycheck.
Let's split up for now. Ilyas, you go and get your paycheck. The rest of you, come to the archives with me.
We'll meet back here later and then head over to Gandharvaville. Relax, Ilias. Being nervous accomplishes nothing. I'm holding you to that. See you later. Okay. The important files from the last few years should all be here. Nothing. Anyway, I found Ilias's file. Let's meet downstairs. This file indicates that you were once commended by the academia for your courage and sense of justice. You were considered a hero. Yes. Your instructor was engaging in academic fraud, and you were the one who reported him. Your report was found to be true after a series of investigations, and your instructor was brought to justice by the Matra. This incident caused quite the commotion, and the academia sent you a commendation. What is it? Are any memories coming back to you? Let's put this matter aside for now. It isn't directly related to Siraj, so there's no need to push yourself over it. Take it slow. Recovering memories is no easy task, especially when it involves memories that you don't want to remember. Just do what you think is right. Your understanding is a great comfort to him. More so these two. My name is Alhaitham, and this is the Traveler and Paimon. You remember now? Is that your way of conveying gratitude? My strength is that I don't care about what others think. If you could also develop this quality, then you won't be as bothered by complicated social relationships. I don't sense him nearby. There's no need for that. Let's keep moving. Of course not. I was also able to see those memories just now. They were probably the ones that leaked out while Ilias was connecting to the collective consciousness. It's clear that this place isn't a work in progress. The hive has long been finished. The collective consciousness project is already complete, and Ilias is now returning to the collective. Not entirely. Keep walking and you'll see why. Don't jump to conclusions just yet. Save your words for when we see him. What did you see? And the best guise is when you believe your own lies. Is this your decision? That is Siraj. When we arrived, I noticed many empty rooms in the hive. I made those words quite clear a year ago. The model you presented was extremely unstable. No amount of garish packaging will change its fragile nature. It can't be helped. If you were clever enough to realize those problems, then you would have been aware that the hive changed when Ilias returned to this collective consciousness of yours. The collective needs motivation to execute its plans, just as machinery requires energy to operate. That's why you, as the Overmind, synchronized your hatred of me into the collective, prompting them to create and execute a plan to eliminate me. However, when Ilias returned to the collective, his memories and emotions were shared with the rest of its members. This includes his perception of me. This contradicts the hatred you had provided them, and these two differing emotions will give rise to new conflict. I've already sent my gift to the collective. It'll take some time for the recipient to receive it. You two just need to brace yourselves for the nuisance in front of us. Members of a collective consciousness are more likely to reach a consensus because of their shared memories and emotions. For example, Ilias did have differing perceptions, but he ultimately followed the collective consciousness's judgment. However, this system is far from perfect. Based on this logic, the collective consciousness will generate an intractable diffusion effect upon encountering negative emotions. The disturbance that Ilias caused wasn't for naught. It made the collective question the Overmind.
Setbacks in the plan further amplify doubt, which diminishes the Overmind's influence. This inevitably causes the collective to generate negative emotions.
Apprehension, disappointment, panic, avarice. These negative emotions can be very well hidden, as humans generally do not share completely transparent channels of communication. But in the hive, where there are no secrets, negativity can spread like a tidal wave. Of course, what I said to Ilias was the trigger for all of this. A few words were enough. Believe in the power of words, Siraj. I knew it from the moment I saw him. Moreover, I never looked down on you. My opinion of you has always been objective. You have a naive view towards the concepts of collective consciousness and human evolution, but you are intelligent and disciplined. You would never let a test subject escape. Mistakes like that are beneath you, and you also won't leave any mistake without a resolution. Your perspective is entirely born from your habitual way of looking at things. From your perspective, you probably think I'm like you, someone who doesn't fit in. However, I've never placed myself on a pedestal. I just want to distance myself from meaningless noise and look at everything objectively. On the other hand, you have failed to come to terms with who you truly are. You care too much about winning and how others perceive you. Is that not so? Arrogant and emotionally fragile. You view people as a simple, mediocre collective, while you regard me as one of your kind. You will stand trial, yes, but arresting people isn't in my job description. I'm just an ordinary staff member. I believe it is the General Mahamatra's duty to escort you away. I left a similar picture in my letter to him, and I made several similar symbols on the way here. It'd be best if you didn't spout nonsense. I never employed any mode of trickery on you. By the way, I came across some information at the academia a few days ago. If you practice the method discussed therein, your vision may improve. Do you need it? Good. Seems like the interesting part is already over. I'll leave the arrests to you all. See you. The matter's settled. We can return now. I actually thought it would have been settled sooner. This took much longer than I expected. Judging by your faces, it seems like you two still have some questions. I respect your curiosity, but I'm off the clock now, so I'm not going to field any questions. You couldn't tell that was an excuse just now? See ya. Are you done? Your behavior is reminding me of some other people. It's too much of a hassle to explain everything from the top. You know what? Come with me. You'll know when we get there. Yes. Stop making a fuss. They're obviously guests. What? You're embarrassed only now of all times? I keep a few books on collectives and the subconscious here at home. I'll get them. You all chat in the meantime. Judging by the deafening din coming from the living room, you all must be getting along quite well. I'll leave the books here. A year ago, Suraj presented his thesis to the Grand Sage, who offhandedly asked for my opinion. I actually responded with 2 lines of reasoning. The first, as I've already said, was that his research was on human evolution, a subject prohibited by the academia. The second was that I thought the direction of his research was too extreme, but his approach too conservative. One way to stabilize a collective consciousness is to remove the test subject's humanity altogether. The optimal solution to achieve collective consciousness is to focus solely on the overmind and treat the other test subjects as tools. I'm merely stating the facts. If Suraj had done that, I would have felt his work to be just as senseless. It's impossible for any species to evolve overnight, and humans without their humanity cannot be called humans. That's why the academia prohibited research into human evolution. Most research of this kind tends to run contrary to evolution. What about you? Are you going to devolve into a fungus? Can you feel the awkwardness in the air? I hope you're aware of your lack of conversational skills. I'm doing quite well. Much better than that painting you're trying to hang on the wall. You whisper very loudly. Do you have any more questions? I bear them no ill will. More accurately, I don't really care about what they think of me. To some extent, they were also fooled by Suraj. The Matra will take this into account at their trials. It doesn't matter. I never considered asking him to come forward with the truth. Judging from his experiences, he's more courageous than the average person. There's no need to lay even more criticism on him. Criticizing the brave only shows how weak you yourself are. I'm going for dinner in 10 minutes, so I'll field one last question. I had no interest in him personally, but I was curious as to why so many people were willing to form a collective consciousness with him. I now understand the reason. Correct. The fall of the sages and the shutdown of the Akasha terminals deeply affected the academia. The fact that Suraj's project attracted so much interest despite not being approved speaks to the lack of research projects as of late. As the acting Grand Sage, I'll have to figure something out. In addition, what happened to Ilyas is worth our attention. Reporting academic fraud was the right thing to do. He didn't deserve the outcome that he had received. I think minimum viable seriousness is a more apt description. I'll do my best to take care of this mess until my resignation is approved. Yes, I've already submitted my resignation to the academia. Soon, I'll resign as the acting Grand Sage and go back to being its scribe. I don't think Suraj knew about that. If he had waited just a few more days before acting, I would have already resigned. What he'd do then wouldn't have been any concern of mine. However, even without my input, his unstable model would have collapsed for some other reason, so it makes no difference. I'm not suited to be a sage, nor do I want to be one. The official process to select the new sages is already underway, but This process is long and takes far too much time. If I serve as acting Grand Sage for too long, the position might become permanent. That would be troublesome. This job isn't something I want to spend the rest of my life doing. It's important to keep your priorities straight. Well, it's about time. You two should grab some dinner as well. See ya.
It's very simple. Instead of focusing on the amount of material you would like to teach, focus on the amount the student would be able to remember. It's still more than the number of times you've managed to get a proposal approved on the first try. That's your purpose for being here, not mine. Don't project your ways of thinking onto me. Precisely. Kaveh will have a long road in front of her. There are only 2 other darshans left. We might as well select all of them on her enrollment application. Phase 2 far exceeds Phase 1 in both curriculum complexity and the speed of instruction. I hope Kaveh has prepared herself for what is coming. Actually, I was thinking about lending her a professions guide. It's too late now to change careers. You might as well try to find some joy in the pain. Besides, you'll be getting up in the middle of the night to make edits to your own design even when the client doesn't request it. Not realizing that you are in fact the one in a whole heap of trouble? The House of Dana is a public space. Anyone can come here, no? You think I would derive amusement from watching you fall into depression over your life's various troubles? If that's the case, then I suppose I must have been entertaining myself for years. I came here to pick up a few files. If your voice hadn't managed to get through my soundproof earpieces, I probably wouldn't have noticed you. There was nothing embarrassing or shameful about it. When I was still a student at the academia, I once collaborated with Kaveh on a research project. A collaboration is usually beneficial for all parties, but due to issues with our personalities, we ended up going our separate ways before completing the project. We had a number of differences, and they remain unresolved even today. But there's no point going into that right now. The more important question is, why are you at the House of Dana? I see. Then let me guess. Your next stop will be the pavilions around Razan Garden? Our famed architect sure loves showing off that corner to all his friends. Oh, and Kaveh, a lot of the books you annotated have been moved to the innermost section of that bookshelf over there. You'll have to dig them out yourself if you need to find them. Sure, if that will give you some self-confidence. Leave any words of thanks you may have to the ex-Grand Conservator. The last time he was here, he was complaining that he had received reports from current students. The main grievance being that the annotations are too long and difficult to read. As a result, the books you annotated have been moved to the back shelves. Oh, we'll wait. Anyway, you were about to say he's feeling a bit down? Put through the ringer. What an interesting phrase. I assume he used those exact words himself. He probably did suffer quite a bit, that's true. He always spends a lot of time editing his proposals, with the goal of satisfying as many of the client's preferences as possible. But the satisfaction of one client will not translate to general satisfaction with his work. Many problems in life can only be solved by a fundamental change of attitude. As the leading genius of Kshahrewar, Kaveh should have both the right and the confidence to reject any unreasonable demands. There are plenty of architects in Sumeru who are inferior to him in skill, yet far more irascible in temperament. What's more, there are plenty of people who look up to such individuals as paragons of staying true to one's principles. Clearly, his predicament is inevitable, since he holds other people's feelings as more important than his own. Of course, each person is different, and we should respect the paths that they have chosen for themselves. Admonitions will serve no purpose. People tend to succumb to familiar pitfalls, and this is especially true for those who believe it's their duty to carry more burdens on their shoulders. What do you think? And it looks like you're already in a much better mood now. It really doesn't take much to make you happy, huh? Why don't you just move all the books yourself? It's not like he hasn't cursed you out before. What was that nickname he gave you while you were in the academia? The Urchin of Kshahrewar? Kaveh had a habit of scribbling and writing in all kinds of books. Don't ask me. This is the time you specifically put aside to brag about yourself. Feel free to hoard all the spotlight you want. We can also plainly see that the designer was a huge fan of this project. It's the project he loves to talk about the most, second to the Palace of Alcazarzaray. There are indeed no records of any complaints about this project. A most impressive achievement. No need. It's almost time to clock out for the day, and I don't intend on bringing any unfinished work home.
Look at this. Evidently, something has come up. And since it pertains to Cyrus and Cyno, I deemed it essential to inform you all. I'll have a cup too. They are, and so are the fruits. Do tell. What were they drinking? Sounds like they're all tangled up in this. I heard some people talking about it on the streets, yes. Didn't take them long to catch the culprit. The sages are probably dealing with the case by now. Interesting. These are all motifs associated with the tribes of the desert. Take this for instance. Looks like an outline of a spire, similar to the kind found on some ancient palaces. And the crisscrossing and mirroring here, I recognize that too. It bears a striking resemblance to an ancient emblem, one that hasn't been used in a very long time. It's the emblem of the Temple of Silence. So you've never heard of the Temple of Silence? Well, to put it simply, it's an organization that has existed in Sumeru for over 1,000 years. These days, you can find a Temple of Silence office in the academia. Theoretically, it's responsible for the custody and disposal of information and documents not fit for public dissemination. At least, that's what they tell the outside world. In truth, it's essentially a vestigial institution nowadays. There's an office with their name on it, but it's functionally obsolete. Historically speaking, the original Temple of Silence is said to have been established by Hermanubis, one of the 7 pillars of King Deshret and the greatest of all sages. Most of the organization's members hailed from the desert. By contrast, none of the Academia Temple's current members are from the desert region, nor do they use any symbols connected with the desert folk. It's possible. The real question is, why? My guess is they're covering something up. If you're asking me whether I familiarized myself with the documentation in my office, I would respond that that's a perfectly normal part of any job. If this situation is connected to the real Temple of Silence, the emblem has to be part of a bigger conspiracy. Can't say I'm surprised. I checked some ancient texts for a similar design. The one I found was a little blurry, but the similarities in the general form and certain details were clear enough to confirm a match. Meanwhile, Arav managed to get Uraka to disclose his source. The one who told him about Cyrus's embezzled funds was a young man from the desert. According to Uraka, he had a striking presence and was well educated. Nephis and Arav have gone to meet the Core of 30 and review the city's entry and exit records. Also, Nephis admitted that the Temple of Silence in the academia is just a facade. The true Temple of Silence once came to the rainforest to establish a collaboration with the academia, but as time went by, the sages gradually became corrupt and foolish. The Temple of Silence felt that they could no longer trust the academia and ended the partnership. They retreated back to the desert about 400 years ago. Ever since its inception, the Temple of Silence has been the guardians of King Deshret's civilization and belief system. They traveled throughout Sumeru, sequestering and guarding any wisdom that posed a threat to the people's livelihoods. At its roots, it was a legitimate and reputable organization whose purpose was to guide people towards the right path. Whoever is behind this, getting Uraka to extort Cyrus was only the first step of the plan. Their true goal in doing so was for Cyrus to see the emblem on the letter. Since the desert is where the Temple of Silence originated, that is in all likelihood where Cyrus went. You'd better get moving. Don't forget to ask for help when you need it. There's no rush. Nobody reads these books anyway. I see. The Temple of Silence resorted to rather unique means of self-preservation. It explains how they managed to remain hidden for so many years. Sounds good. A truly edifying account of the events. Bereft of detail, but it has livened up the room all the same. I think that'll do me for today. My thoughts exactly. See you around.